I found my husband's cruise ticket in our printer tray. 2 passengers, 1 cabin, and my name was not on it. Asterisk before I knew about the cruise. My life looked ordinary in the way that almost dares you to believe you are safe. I'm Kendra Hallett, 34. The kind of woman who keeps a color-coded calendar on the fridge because chaos makes my chest tighten. I work part-time doing billing for a local dental office, mostly from home, because it lets me be the mom who's actually there when the school calls and says, Miles forgot his lunch again. Miles is 8, all elbows and questions. The type of kid who will narrate his entire day like it's a sports documentary. He is also the reason I learned how to swallow my feelings without making a mess of the people around me. Drew and I have been married for 11 years. If you asked anyone who didn't live in our house, they would have described him as charming, driven, and dependable. Drew could walk into a backyard barbecue and have 3 dads laughing in under a minute. He remembered names, shook hands like he meant it, and always offered to refill someone's drink. He also knew how to sound sincere when he said, Babe, it's just been a crazy week. I used to believe that was love, showing up, keeping the wheels on, giving each other grace when life got loud. Our mornings ran on muscle memory. I'd make Miles's cereal and argue gently about teeth brushing, then pack my laptop bag and check the day's schedule like I was scanning for landmines. Drew usually left earlier than us. He'd kiss Miles on the head, call him buddy, then kiss me on the cheek with a soft love you, already halfway to the door. The gesture was there. The warmth behind it had been fading, slowly enough that I blamed myself for noticing. We weren't the couple that screamed at each other. We weren't the couple people whispered about. We were the couple other people asked for advice, which is its own kind of pressure. When friends joked about marriage being hard, Drew would smile and say, It's a team sport. I would nod and smile back, because that's what you do when you want your life to keep looking like the life you planned, if I'm honest. The loneliness started months before the ticket ever printed. Drew worked in sales, which meant his job came with built-in excuses that sounded mature and responsible. Client dinners, conferences, last-minute trips. It's part of the grind, he'd say, like the grind was a temporary season and not a permanent identity. I tried not to complain. Complaining felt like something weaker women did. Women who did not understand what it took to build a stable life, but stability can be a quiet kind of grief when you are the only one holding it at night. After Miles went to bed, I'd sit on the couch with a blanket and the TV on low, waiting for Drew to come home. Sometimes he'd walk in around 10, loosen his tie, and say, You still up? Like it surprised him that I existed after 7 p.m. He'd open the fridge, eat standing up, and scroll his phone with his thumb moving too fast. How was your day? I'd ask. Same, he'd say, not looking up. Long. I started telling myself he was tired. I started telling myself we were just in a rut. I started telling myself that grown-up marriages weren't supposed to feel like fireworks, and that what we had was real because it was quiet. Then the quiet changed. Drew began turning, his phone screen down on the counter, face down every time, even when it buzzed. If I walked into the room, he'd pick it up too quickly, like a reflex. Once, I reached for it because it was sliding off the arm of the couch, and he snatched it before I could touch it. Sorry, he said, and forced a laugh. Work's been weird about security stuff. I told myself that made sense. I wanted it to make sense. He started going to the gym at odd hours. Not after work like normal people, but early afternoon on weekends or late at night when he said he needed to clear his head. He came home smelling like a new cologne, sharper and sweeter than as usual. When I asked about it, he said, One of the guys had a sample in his car. I tried it. You like it? I didn't, but I said, it's fine, because I was tired of being the person who made things complicated, The biggest change was how he looked at me, or rather, how he didn't. He stopped meeting my eyes when I talked about things that mattered. He would listen just long enough to respond with something that sounded supportive but landed flat. One Thursday, I brought up a weekend trip. Nothing fancy, just a 2-night hotel near the beach. Something to feel like a couple again. Drew didn't even pretend to consider it. We can't afford that right now. I stared at him. We can afford a new grill you bought last month. That was different, he said, quick and annoyed. That's for the house. For us. I felt something twist in my stomach at the way he said, for us, like he was using the word as a shield instead of a promise. Stopped my mom. Janice Holt saw it before I admitted it to myself. Janice is blunt in the way only a woman can be after she has raised kids, paid bills, and watched people lie with a straight face. She never hated Drew, but she never fell for him either. One afternoon, she stopped by while Miles was at school. I was folding laundry at the kitchen table, trying to make a neat stack out of a life that felt messy. Janice watched me for a minute and said, "You look tired in your bones, Kendra." "I'm fine," I told her automatically. She leaned her elbows on the counter. "No, you're functioning. There's a difference." I kept folding, my hands moving faster. "Drew's just under pressure." Janice held my gaze. "Pressure doesn't make a good man colder. Pressure shows you what's already there." Her words made me angry because I did not want to hear them. I wanted my marriage to be fixable with a date night and a little patience. I wanted to believe the problem was stress, not betrayal. That week, I tried harder. I made Drew's favorite dinner, even though I was tired. I wore a dress I hadn't worn in a while. I asked him about his work trip schedule like I was interested, like I wasn't searching for gaps. He kissed my cheek, ate quickly, and said, "I've got an early start tomorrow." "Big meeting. Where?" I asked Dot. He hesitated for a half second, the kind of pause you only notice when your gut is already awake. "Regional," he said. "Down near Miami." "Miami," I repeated, letting the words sit between us. "Yeah," he said, and his eyes flicked to his phone. "Nothing exciting." I nodded, forcing myself to act normal while my mind filed the detail away like a receipt I might need later. The next Tuesday afternoon, I was in the hallway outside our little home office, balancing a stack of Miles's permission slips and the mail. The house was quiet in that midday way, the kind of silence that makes you notice every sound. Then the printer word to life. It was a small thing. Just paper feeding through rollers, but it was wrong. Drew never printed at home unless it was something he didn't want sent to his work printer. And that thought hit me hard enough that I stopped walking. I stood there listening to the mechanical hum, my heart starting to pound for no good reason. When it finished, the printer made that final click, and I walked over, picked up the warm pages from the tray, and felt my entire sense of normal begin to break. The paper was still warm when I lifted it from the printer tray, and for a second, I honestly thought it had to be a mistake. Drew barely used the home printer unless Miles needed a science project photo. But this was a full-page confirmation with a cruise line logo at the top, bolded dates, and a barcode like it belonged to an airport or a concert. My eyes went straight to the words that made my throat close. Balcony. Stateroom. Romance package. Then I saw the passenger names. Drew. Holly Sloan Mercer. I read it again, slower, like my brain could argue the letters into rearranging themselves. My name was nowhere. Not as a guest. Not as an emergency contact. Not even as an afterthought. I stood there in the hallway with the mail still tucked under my arm, the house silent around me, and I felt something change in my body. It was not just sadness. It was the sudden clarity of being played for a fool. Still, denial is a stubborn reflex. I told myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe it was a work incentive trip. Maybe he was bringing a coworker because she won something. Maybe romance package was a default template. My mind reached for anything that meant I didn't have to accept what was right in front of me. Then I flipped to the second page and saw the ad dash on Stott Champagne on arrival, a couple's massage, a private dinner reservation for two with their names printed beneath it. The denial fell. Apart like cheap paper, I walked into our office and sat in Drew's chair because my legs were shaking too hard to hold me up. I stared at the itinerary until my eyes blurred, then forced myself to do the only thing I could think to do, breathe quietly and act normal until I knew exactly how deep this went. Drew would be home in an hour to grab something before another late meeting. That's what he had texted earlier. I used that time like it was borrowed oxygen. First, I took photos of the printed pages with my phone from multiple angles, making sure the confirmation number was readable. Then I scanned them to my email. I knew how quickly a liar could make evidence disappear. I was not giving him that chance. I folded the pages and slid them into a manila folder, the kind I used for Miles's school paperwork. The irony made my stomach turn. I labeled it medical receipts because I needed something boring in case. Drew noticed it. When the garage door finally rumbled open, my heart started pounding so hard I thought I might actually hear it in my ears. Drew walked in like nothing in the world had changed. He loosened his tie, glanced at the counter, and said, "Hey, what's for dinner?" I looked at him and felt a strange, icy calm settle over me. "We need to talk first." His eyebrows lifted just slightly. "Okay." I held up the folder and pulled out the first page, careful not to crumple it. "Why did the printer spit out a cruise confirmation with your name on it?" He blinked, too slow. "What?" I pushed the page toward him across the counter. "Don't do that. Look at it." He glanced down, and I watched his face go through quick calculations. Surprise, then something like annoyance, then the smooth mask sliding back into place. "It's for work," he said. "A client thing. Incentive trip." My hands tightened on the edge of the counter. "Then why is Sloan Mercer listed as passenger 2? That was the moment. The moment I saw him decide whether I deserved the truth. His jaw flexed. "Kendra, you're snooping." "I'm holding paper that printed in our house," I said. "If this is normal, explain it." He exhaled like I was exhausting him. "Sloan is on my team. She's coordinating logistics. It's complicated." I let the silence hang for one beat. "A romance package is complicated?" His eyes flashed, irritated now that the script wasn't working. "It comes with the cabin. It's a marketing thing. It's not like we asked for it." The lie landed wrong because it was too rehearsed. Drew didn't sound confused or offended. He sounded prepared. That hit me harder than the cruise itself. "So you're telling me," I said carefully, "that you and Sloan are sharing a balcony cabin on a cruise with champagne and a couple's massage? And I'm supposed to believe that's professional?" He leaned closer, voice dropping like he was doing me a favor by keeping it private. "You're making this into something it isn't." The gaslighting was so clean and almost worked. Almost. Then I remembered the look on his face when he recognized her name on the page. That was not innocent. I took the papers back and tucked them into the folder. "I'm not making anything. I'm reacting to what you printed." His mouth tightened. "I have a meeting. We'll talk later when you calm down." I watched him grab his keys. Like he could just walk away from the moment he created, like I was a problem to be managed. Not a wife he'd betrayed. "Drew," I called after him, sharper than I meant to. He paused at the door. "If this is nothing," I said, "then show me your email confirmation and the work details right now." His eyes narrowed. "I'm not doing this." Then he left. The door shut. The house went still again, but it was a different kind of still. Like the air knew something had died. I stood there for a long minute, staring at the door he'd closed, waiting for the shock to turn into tears. Instead, something else rose up. Focus. I opened our shared laptop, the one Miles used for homework. Drew had always been casual about passwords at home, confident I wasn't the type to check. His confidence made my hands steadier than they had any right to be. Logged into our joint credit card account and pulled up recent charges. My eyes moved fast, hunting. There it was, a charge from a travel site, the cruise line deposit, and a hotel in Miami for the night before departure. Then a jewelry store charge that did not belong to any anniversary or birthday I knew about. My throat tightened anyway, but I kept going. Screenshot, screenshot, download statement. Email it to myself. I created a folder in my email labeled taxes because I didn't want this sitting in plain sight if Drew ever got curious. Next, I checked our shared photo stream, the one that backed up automatically when Drew forgot to turn it off. I scrolled until my thumb stopped on a photo that looked like nothing. Drew in the car, sunglasses on, half a smirk. But in the reflection of the lens, faint and unmistakable, was a woman's face leaning in close, her hair perfectly styled. Her smile angled like she knew she was winning. I didn't know Sloane personally, but I didn't need to. I had eyes. I stared at that reflection until my vision sharpened into something ugly, humiliation. Not because I believed I wasn't enough, but because I had been loyal to someone who treated loyalty like a weakness. Miles came home from school an hour later, bursting through the door with a story about a dodgeball victory. I laughed in the right places, unpacked his backpack, and warmed up chicken nuggets like I hadn't just had my life split open. When he asked, "Where's Dad?" I said, "Working," and hated how easy the lie felt in my mouth. Like Drew had trained me. After Miles went to bed, I sat on the edge of my own couch and let myself feel it for real. The anger came first, hot and clean. Then grief, because part of me had loved Drew with an honesty he did not deserve. Then fear, because I could already see the fallout. Custody schedules, finances, Miles's confusion. And then I saw something on the cruise confirmation that made the fear sharpen into determination. Sloane Mercer, a name is a trail. A trail leads to other people. I searched her online, hand steady, heart pounding. Her social media was polished, all bright smiles and brunch plates and engagement photos that looked like a magazine spread. And there, right under a photo of her holding up her left hand with a ring that sparkled under restaurant lighting, was the caption, "Forever starts soon." Tagged beside her was Evan Rios. I stared at Evan's face, at the way he was looking at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. And my stomach twisted with a new kind of anger. Drew hadn't just betrayed me. He'd chosen a woman who was betraying someone else too. That's when I understood something I couldn't unsee. Confronting Drew at home would turn into a private argument where he could deny, dodge, and rewrite history until I doubted my own eyes. If I wanted the truth to land with the full weight of what they'd done, it couldn't happen in our kitchen. It had to happen where their fantasy lived, on that ship. The night I found Evan Rios' name under Sloane's engagement photo, I stared at my phone until my eyes burned. I could have closed the app, curled into bed, and waited for Drew to come home so I could demand answers he would never give me. That was the old version of me, the one who still believed honesty could be coaxed out of someone who was committed to lying, but something in me had shifted the moment Drew looked at that cruise confirmation and chose to blame me instead of explain himself. I wasn't going to chase the truth around my own kitchen like it was a runaway dog. If Drew and Sloane wanted to play a romantic game, they were going to do it on a stage where they could not control the lighting. I opened my notes app and wrote one sentence, "Tell Evan." Then I set my phone down and walked to Miles's bedroom. He was asleep on his side, one arm flung over his pillow, his face soft in that way kids are when the world hasn't taught them to brace for impact. I stood in the doorway longer than I meant to, feeling the sting in my throat. "I'm going to protect you," I whispered, even though he couldn't hear me. "I'm going to do this smart." Back in the kitchen, I called my mom. Janice answered on the second ring, already alert like she'd been waiting. "Kendra?" "I need you," I said, and my voice cracked on the second word. There was a pause, then her tone turned steady and sharp. "Is it Drew?" "Yes." "Tell me what you know," she said. I told her everything and clipped. Factual sentences because if I spoke in emotions, I was going to fall apart. When I got to Sloane's name and the romance package, my mom let out a quiet sound that was not quite a sigh and not quite a curse. "I'll keep Miles," she said immediately. "You do not drag that baby into a fight he didn't start." "I don't want him anywhere near it," I said. "Good," she replied. "And before you confront anyone again, you get your proof organized and you talk to an attorney. Not because you're vindictive, because you're not foolish." I swallowed. Okay. Then I picked up my phone and went back to Sloane's page. Evan's profile was public enough to message. His photos looked normal, almost painfully normal. A dog, a backyard grill, a family Christmas shot with his arm around Sloane while she smiled straight into the camera like she wasn't currently. Boarding a cruise with my husband. My thumb hovered over the message button. I could already imagine what Drew would say if he knew I was doing this. "You're crazy. You're dramatic. You're ruining people's lives." My pulse kicked up. But I typed anyway. "Hi, Evan. You don't know me. But I'm Kendra Hollow. I'm married to Drew Hawley. I believe Drew and Sloane are going on a cruise together this weekend, sharing a cabin. I have proof. I'm not trying to hurt you, but I think you deserve to know. Can we talk tonight privately?" I stared at the message for a full 10 seconds before I hit send, like pressing the button would make it real. It did. For the next hour, I kept myself busy in the most boring ways possible because my brain needed the illusion of normal. I rinsed dishes that were already clean. I wiped the counter twice. I checked the locks. When my phone buzzed, I nearly dropped it. Evan had replied, "Who is this really? Why are you doing this?" I took a breath and called him. If I hid behind text, it would sound like a scam. A liar always prefers distance. I wanted him to hear the truth in my voice. He picked up after 2 rings. "Hello." "Evan, it's Kendra," I said. "I'm sorry to blindside you." I wish I was wrong. There was a pause, tight and suspicious. "How did you get my name?" "Your fiancé posted it," I said, and even saying fiancé made something hot rise in my chest. I found a cruise confirmation printed at my house. Drew and Sloane are listed as the 2 passengers. Same cabin. Romance package. He let out a short laugh that sounded like his body refusing to accept it. "No, Sloane's visiting her cousin in Tampa. She's been planning it for weeks." "I know," I said quietly. "Drew told me he's going to a regional meeting near Miami." Silence. Then, in a voice that was suddenly smaller, Evan asked, "What proof do you have?" I opened my email folder and started sending him the screenshots one by one, the passenger list, the cabin upgrade, the Miami hotel deposit, the jewelry store charge, the selfie with the reflection. I did not editorialize. I did not add drama. I let the facts speak. On the phone, Evan's breathing changed. It went shallow, like he was trying not to make noise. Finally, he said, "I bought her that ring last spring." "I'm sorry," I told him. It was the simplest sentence I could manage. Everything else felt too loaded. He cleared his throat. "What do you want to do?" I surprised myself by answering immediately. "I want them to have to face it. Not in private where they can twist it." I want them to see who they hurt at the same time with nowhere to run. You want to confront them, he said, and his voice steadied as the shock turned into something harder. Yes, I said, but safely. No screaming, no fights, just the truth. Evan exhaled. Okay, tell me how. The next morning, while Drew showered and moved through the house like a man who thought he'd gotten away with something, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and booked a cruise cabin under my own name. My hands didn't shake while I typed my credit card number. That part of me was already done being afraid Evan booked too. We agreed on separate cabins because neither of us was looking for comfort. We were looking for clarity. I also scheduled a same-day consult with a family law attorney in my town, a woman named Marla Wynn who spoke in calm, direct sentences that made me feel less like I was falling and more like I was stepping down a staircase. Do not destroy property, Marla said. Do not drain accounts without guidance. Preserve every document. If you confront him, keep it public, keep it calm, and do not involve your child. I won't, I promise. When I told Janice the plan, she didn't flinch. Miami, she said, like she was repeating a grocery list. Fine, I'll pick up Miles from school Friday. You pack his soccer stuff. And Kendra? What? Her voice softened just a notch. Do not let Drew talk you into feeling guilty for noticing you're being betrayed. That one nearly broke me, but I held it together. I won't. Friday came fast. I dropped Miles at my mom's with a tight hug that lasted a second too long. He complained because 8-year-olds complain about anything that changes their routine. Why can't you come too? He asked. I have grown-up stuff to handle, I said, keeping my smile steady. You're going to have fun with Grandma. Janice leaned in close to him. We're making pancakes tomorrow. Extra chocolate chips? Miles lit up. Okay, but you better come back, Mom. I will, I said, and meant it like a vow. At the airport in Miami, Evan and I met near baggage claim. In photos, he looked confident. In real life, he looked like a man carrying a weight he hadn't trained for. He was tall, neatly dressed, and trying hard not to look like he was unraveling. He held out his hand like we were at a job interview. Kendra. I shook it. Evan. For a beat, we just stood there, two strangers stitched together by the same betrayal. Then he swallowed and said, I can't believe she did this. I can, I admitted, surprising myself. Not because I know her. Because I know what it takes to lie this clean. Evan nodded, eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. I brought the ring, he said, and patted his jacket pocket once, like he needed to prove it to himself. I did not tell him to leave it behind. Symbol mattered. Reality needed props sometimes. On the shuttle to the port, we reviewed the plan in low voices. We would board as early as possible, get our bearings, and choose a moment where Drew and Sloan could not dodge us into a hallway. Somewhere public enough that they would have to keep their masks on, which meant they would have fewer tools to manipulate. No name-calling, I said. No begging, Evan added. And no letting them turn this into our fault. I finished. Evan looked at me then, really looked. You seem calm. I'm not calm, I said. I'm decided. When the ship finally came into view, white and enormous against the blue, my stomach flipped. This was the place they had chosen for their fantasy. And in less than an hour, it was going to become the place where that fantasy ended. We stepped into the terminal, passports in hand. And I felt the last thread of hesitation snap by the time the boarding announcement began. Evan and I were already in line, moving forward together, holding the proof that would change everything the second Drew and Sloan stepped onto the same deck. By the time Evan and I boarded, the ship already felt like its own little world, loud and bright and designed to make you forget whatever life you left on land. Staff in crisp uniforms pointed people toward buffets and welcome drinks. A steel drum band played near the pool deck like happiness was a requirement. Not a mood dot, I kept my face neutral while my body betrayed me. My hands were cold. My stomach was tight. Every few steps I had to remind myself to breathe like a normal person and not like someone walking toward an explosion. Evan stayed close, not touching me, just there. It was strangely comforting, not because we were friends, but because he was proof I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the only one seeing what was happening. We found a quiet corner near guest services, away from the crowds funneling toward the elevators. You still sure? He asked. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. Then I corrected myself because honesty mattered even now. I'm terrified. I'm just not changing my mind. He nodded once, jaw locked. Same. We didn't go looking for their cabin or try to play detective. We didn't need to. The cruise terminal had one main choke point where everyone had to pass, the embarkation photo area. The ship wanted those smiling pictures because they sell you the memory later. Drew and Sloane would walk straight into that moment. Thinking the world was cheering them on, Evan and I positioned ourselves near the edge of the photo setup, where we could see the incoming line without being obvious. I pretended to read the daily schedule on my phone. Evan stared at a wall sign so hard I thought he might burn a hole through it. Then I saw them dot Drew first, rolling a suitcase, sunglasses uneven indoors like he was starring in his own movie. He looked rested, lighter than he had at home in months. That detail hurt more than I expected. It meant he had energy. He was just saving it for someone else. Beside him was Sloane Mercer, exactly as polished as her pictures. White sundress, perfect hair, the kind of smile that says she's used to getting what she wants. Her hand brushed Drew's forearm as they walked, casual and familiar. Like she had practiced the gesture in front of a mirror. My mouth went dry. For a second, my vision tunneled, and I could only see that hand on my husband. Evan sucked in a breath that sounded painful. That's her, he said, the words barely making it out. I know, I whispered. My voice didn't shake, which surprised me. It was like my anger had finally found a job and was doing it well. They stepped into the photo area. The photographer chirped, "Welcome aboard." "Right here, you two." Drew angled his body toward Sloane automatically. She leaned in, smiling up at him like she belonged in that frame. I started walking before I could overthink it. Evan fell into step beside me. The photographer lifted the camera. "All right, big smiles." I stopped directly in front of them, close enough to smell Drew's cologne, that new scent I didn't like. "Hold that smile," I said, calm and clear. "This is going to be a memorable one." Drew's face drained so fast it was almost impressive. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but his mouth gave him away. It went slack, then tight. "Kendra," he said like I was a ghost and he could talk me back into the grave. Sloane's smile faltered, then snapped back into place for half a second, the way a trained person tries to recover. "Hi," she said cautiously, as if I had wandered into the wrong line at a grocery store. Evan stepped forward, and Sloane's expression finally broke. The color left her cheeks. "Evan," she breathed. He didn't shout. That was the scariest part. His voice came out controlled, almost flat. "You told me Tampa?" Sloane's eyes flicked to Drew, then back to Evan. "This is not what it looks like," she said. And it was such a cliche that it made my stomach flip with disgust. Drew reached for my elbow. Not hard, but with the entitlement of a man who thought he could steer me. "Kendra, not here," he said through his teeth. "We can talk in private." I took one step back so his hand fell away. "No," I said. "You've had private? You've been private for months? This is public because what you did was deliberate." The photographer lowered the camera and awkwardly stepped back like he was trying not to become part of the story. A couple nearby stopped walking. Someone behind us cleared their throat. I felt eyes on my skin, but I didn't care. Drew counted on my embarrassment. He counted on me wanting to disappear. I didn't. Drew tried to regain control with that same tone he used at home when he wanted to turn me into the problem. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said quietly. I looked him straight in the face. "I'm not embarrassed. I'm informed." Evan pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket, the cruise confirmation I'd printed. He held it up between them like a warrant. "You booked this," he said to Sloane. "2 passengers. 1 cabin." Sloane's eyes filled, but her chin lifted defensively. "Evan, please. Let's not do this here." "Where do you want to do it?" he asked, and that was the moment I knew he was done loving her. "In our apartment, where your dress for our wedding is hanging in the closet." Drew opened his mouth, then shut it. He looked around, calculating who was watching, how to get out of it. His gaze landed on me again, hardening. "This is between us," he said. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "No, you made it between all of us when you put her name next to yours and spent our money to celebrate it." Sloane's eyes snapped to me. "I didn't know he was married," she said, too quickly. Evan's head turned toward her, slow. "Sloane, I didn't even blink. My wedding ring is in our family photos on your social media, Sloane. You've been in my house. You've met my son." That landed. Her lips parted, then pressed together. She had nothing to say because the lie had nowhere to go. Evan reached into his jacket pocket and took out a small black box. Not opened, just held there, heavy with meaning. Sloane's breath hitched. "Evan, don't." He placed the box on a nearby counter beside a stack of brochures, gently, like he was setting down something fragile that had already shattered. "You can keep the trip," he said. "You're not keeping me." A sound came out of Sloane that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite anger. Drew stepped toward her instinctively, protective, and the sight of that sent a clean, burning line through my chest. I looked at Drew and spoke in the same tone I used with Miles when rules mattered. "Do not contact my mother. Do not call Miles. You will communicate through my attorney starting Monday." Drew's head jerked. "Your attorney?" "Yes," I said. "And if you think you're going to paint me as unstable, keep in mind I have your printed confirmation, your charges, and your lies documented. Every time you try to twist this, I will tighten it." For the first time, Drew looked frightened. Not of losing me, but of losing control of the narrative. He leaned in, voice low, desperate now. "Kendra, please. Let's talk. Don't do this." I met his gaze and felt something settle inside me, quiet and final. "You didn't beg when you booked the cruise," I said. "So don't beg now." Then I turned, not running, not shaking, just walking away with Evan beside me. Behind us, I heard Drew say my name again, louder. And I kept going. The ship's music played on like nothing had happened. But I knew the truth. Their fantasy had lasted exactly until the moment reality stepped into the frame. I didn't realize how much adrenaline was holding me together until Evan and I turned the corner and the noise of the embarkation deck swallowed us again. People laughed, posed for photos, argued about drink packages. Nobody cared that my marriage had just cracked in half in front of a camera. We rode the elevator in silence. My hands were clenched so tight, my nails left little crescents on my palm. When the doors opened on my floor, I walked to my cabin with a steady pace like I belonged there. Like my insides were not shaking. The moment I closed the door behind me, my body finally caught up. I slid down the wall onto the carpet, pressed my forehead to my knees, and let the tremor run through me. I wasn't sobbing. I wasn't screaming. It was more like my system was rebooting after months of swallowing questions. I whispered out loud, just to hear something true in the room. "I'm not crazy." A few minutes later, there was a soft knock. I opened the door to Evan. His face looked drawn, like the confrontation had drained him clean. But his eyes were steady. "Are you okay?" he asked. No, I said. But I'm not lost anymore. He nodded as if that made perfect sense. I keep replaying it, he admitted. Her smile and that photo line. Like she was proud. I stepped aside to let him in, not because I wanted company, but because I understood that kind of shock too well. Evan sat on the edge of the chair and stared at the carpet. I'm sorry, he said again, quieter this time. You shouldn't have had to do this. Neither should you, I told him. But I'm glad you were there. Drew would have tried to make me look irrational if it was just me. Evan's jaw tightened. He looked at you like you were the problem. That's been his favorite trick lately, I said. Then I exhaled and forced myself back into practical thinking. I'm going to call my attorney when her office opens Monday. In the meantime, I'm freezing the joint card. Evan looked up. Can you do that? I can freeze my access and report suspicious charges, I said. Marla told me not to do anything reckless, but she also said not to let him keep spending like a teenager with a stolen wallet. Evan's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Good, he said, hesitation flickering in his expression. I should go. I don't want to make this harder for you. It's not you, I said, and meant it. It's the aftermath. After he left, I sat on the bed and checked my phone for the first time since the confrontation. There were already messages from Drew. Kendra. What the hell was that? You humiliated me. Call me now. The fourth message came a minute later. You're really going to throw away our family over a misunderstanding? That one did it. My hand stopped shaking. I typed back one sentence. Do not contact my mother. Do not contact Miles. You will communicate through my attorney. He responded instantly. You can't keep my son from me. I stared at the screen, feeling how predictable he was. He wasn't worried about Miles. He was worried about access, about leverage. I wrote, you're not being kept from him. You're being kept from using him. Then I turned my phone on silent and opened my banking app. I didn't drain anything. I didn't make dramatic transfers. I simply did what I should have done months ago. I separated what I could legally separate, flagged the unfamiliar charges, and froze the card for new purchases until I could speak to Marla the next morning. I woke early and walked to the top deck before most people were out. The ocean was flat and endless, the sky pale with sunrise. I leaned against the railing and let myself feel grief without panic. Not grief for Drew, not really. Grief for the version of my life I had been protecting. I thought of Miles, his backpack by the door, his little hand in mine crossing the parking lot at school, the way he trusted both his parents because he didn't know he was supposed to doubt them. My phone buzzed with a call. Janice. Hey, I answered. How are you holding up? My mom asked. Voice sharp with restraint. I did it, I said. I confronted him. Evan was there. Janice let out a breath. Good, Miles is fine. He ate 2 pancakes and tried to negotiate for a third. That detail nearly broke me because it was normal. It was safe. It was the world I was trying to keep intact for my kid. I'm coming home, I told her. I don't want to be on this ship another minute. Then come home, she said. You already proved your point. At the first port, I gathered my things and went to guest services to arrange disembarkation. They asked if there was an emergency. I told them, family situation, and kept my face composed until they handed me the paperwork. As I stepped off the ship, I saw Drew across the terminal near a row of excursion signs. He looked rumpled now. His confident vacation posture collapsed into agitation. Sloan wasn't beside him. His eyes locked onto mine and he started toward me. Kendra, he called out, too loud, like volume could reassert control. You can't just leave. I didn't speed up. I didn't slow down. I stopped at a polite distance, the way you would with someone you no longer trust. I can, I said. I am. I'm going home to our son. His face tightened. So you're really doing this? You did this? I corrected. I'm responding. He tried a softer tone, the one he used when he wanted something. Can we talk without an audience? You had that option, I said. You chose a cruise instead. His eyes flicked around like he was looking for Sloane, for backup, for someone to make him the victim. Then he said the line I will never forget. She's freaking out too, you know? I stared at him. I don't care, Drew. And that was the bite, not for him, but for me. The moment I realized my empathy was no longer available to people who treated it like a resource to steal, I walked away and did not look back. Over the next few weeks, the fallout came in waves. Drew alternated between rage and pity. He sent long texts about how stressed he was, how I had blindsided him, how we could fix this. Every message had the same center, himself. Marla helped me put everything into clean channels. A parenting app, written agreements, boundaries that did not require Drew's cooperation to exist. Evan and I checked in once, just once. He texted, "You home safe?" And I answered, "Yes, you?" He replied, "Yeah, ring's gone." Lesson learned. Sloane tried to message me too. Not an apology, not really. More like damage control. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I didn't respond. Some sentences don't deserve oxygen. The real ending wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and stubborn and earned. A few months later, after papers were filed and the house felt less like a crime scene and more like a home again, I took Miles and my mom to the beach for a weekend. Nothing fancy. A small hotel. Salt air. A boardwalk with overpriced fries. Miles ran toward the water like he'd been waiting his whole life for permission to be carefree. That night, he fell asleep sun-tired, and I sat on the balcony listening to the waves. For the first time in a long time, the quiet didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. Drew and Sloane had booked that cruise thinking secrecy would protect them. All it did was give me the clearest moment of my life. The moment I stopped negotiating with betrayal and started building a life that didn't require me to ignore my own reality.